Explore the endless bounds of space with all new LEGO building sets. From engineering wonders like LEGO Technic NASA Apollo Lunar Roving Vehicle to astronaut dog walkers, there is a perfect LEGO set for everyone on Earth. First launched in 1978, space sets have been igniting people's curiosity through the ultimate creative medium of LEGO bricks. Their newest collection is sure to propel the wonder for exploration and adventure across the galaxies. Be inspired by LEGO sets that are out of this world. Visit Amazon.com/LEGO Space to see the full collection.
Welcome to How to Survive with Danielle and Christine, the show that helps you learn how to survive the stuff that can kill you.
Like nuclear fallout or spider bites or collapsed buildings.
Ooh, and the stuff that just makes you wish you were dead.
Oh, like yawning during sex or forgetting your bra or throwing up on a doctor.
Man, we should just play this song.
Man, we should.
Ground is shaking under our feet, mountains on fire, flooding in the street. Can't breathe the air, can't fight the feeling. Gobbling down Xanax ain't the way to be dealing. Gotta do better than just getting high. We gotta stick together if we're gonna survive. How to survive. How to survive.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to How to Survive with Danielle and Christine. I'm Christine.
And I'm Danielle.
Hi, Danielle.
Hi, Christine.
You know what I want to say?
Yeah.
Real quick
Okay.
to our listeners.
Yeah.
We love you guys.
Adore you.
And we so appreciate all your engagement and
Yes.
support. But what I'd like to ask you to do real quick, if you haven't already, is please push that button on your phone that says
Push that button.
Push that button.
Hit that button.
Like, follow, subscribe.
Right.
Whatever the thing is on your podcast platform that
That shows you're listening to the show every week or that you're downloading it every week. That would be awesome.
you know what, it doesn't cost anything.
No. It just costs the movement of your finger to a button.
Bing. And you know what, it helps us be able to keep making this podcast.
Yes.
At no cost to you.
That's right.
Totally free. And you're like, hey, guess what? I already did that. And you're like, what else could I do, Danielle and Christine? If you're asking yourself that question,
Yeah.
you could, if you want, write us a review.
Oh, that's a great idea. Write us a review. Tell us what you like specifically. That's always helpful.
What do you like? We love to hear it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to sound desperate.
You don't sound desperate.
I don't think so. I think I sound
You sound appropriately desperate.
yes.
Yes.
And interested.
Yeah.
And that's what we'd love you to do. We love hearing from you.
Yes.
You can email us podcast howtosurvive@gmail.com.
Yeah.
And one more thing I'm going to say.
Okay.
We have merch.
We do have merch. We have fun merch. So go to podhowtosurvive.com. Should we get to today's episode?
Yes.
We're going to talk about collapsing buildings.
I couldn't be more excited.
Hold on to something. We're talking about collapsing buildings.
I'm going to hold on to this table.
Okay. Here are the indicators of a collapse. This is the warning shots of impending collapse will vary depending on the type of construction. As the building is stressed, walls may begin to separate from ceilings and from other walls. So they're saying like before it happens, you might get some clues. Cracks will form at these junctions, and cracks wider than your thumb, which isn't that big.
No.
I mean, it depends on whose thumb it is, I guess, indicate that things are getting desperate. There's a girl on Jeopardy right now.
Yeah.
I say girl because she's very young. She is named Roach is her last name.
Glad that's not her first name.
No. It's Matea Roach. And she has the tiniest hands you've ever seen, like disproportionately tiny to the rest of her body.
Yeah.
And she uses them a lot. She's extremely...
Does a lot of thumb work.
Lots of hand work. When she says hi to the camera at the beginning, she unfurls her hand like a flag. Like every time we all do it at home together, like in unison. And she like will go, let's get out of that category, and like squishes it.
I love it.
Wipes it away. And she's very, very manneristic.
Do you think if the crack is the size of her thumb, should I worry? Or
No, I think if it's right, exactly why I bring it up. Somewhere between Matea Roach's thumb and like Andre the Giant's thumb.
Okay.
You should worry.
So closer to Andre.
Right.
Get out of the building.
Right.
I'm looking at the cracks. I'm looking to see if we have any thumb cracks. I think we're okay.
Dust hanging in the air or creaking and groaning that suddenly seems amplified also matter. One of the final and most eerie, I would think would be eeriest, indicators in a multi-story building is doors suddenly opening or closing by themselves as the building's twists or racks.
Ugh.
Disturbingly, when the doors close, they often don't properly shut, but get jammed into the racked openings, possibly locking occupants inside.
No.
Yep.
I don't care for this.
I know. At that point, you probably have less than 15 seconds to get out.
And you're jammed in.
And you're jammed in. Right. So they're saying when you hear the doors slamming, then you get the heck out.
Is it possible you're also in a haunted house?
I think that is a possibility. Yeah. At that point, you hope for a collapse because the alternative is that there's a dead, I'm going to call her 6-year-old girl with a British accent for sure haunting your house.
And she's going to come and either eat you or stab you with stabby knives.
She's going to stab you with stabby knives. Yeah. Also, her eyes are going to pop out for some reason and then pop back in. I don't know why. If it's collapsing around you, get out by any means necessary. Head towards the light. Head towards the light.
What was that? What was the name? What was the name?
Poltergeist.
I know the movie, but what was she saying? Like there was a name.
Oh, the something of something compels
Go
you.
to the light. It was like what?
Carol Ann.
Carol Ann.
Yeah.
Thank you. You probably just saw that movie 2 nights ago.
It's on the list.
I saw it. I saw Poltergeist for the first time this past Halloween.
No.
First time ever. Yeah. Because I don't like scary movies, and as a kid, I really didn't like scary movies, so I would avoid them at all costs. But I figured, and I was correct, that I could handle this one.
Does it hold up?
Well, yeah, it's really good.
Okay.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, there's a lot going on, like a lot of different elements that you're like, wait, who's this woman now? And but anyway, yeah, it's fun.
Okay.
Yeah, it's good. Okay. Windows are often the most accessible egress points, assuming that they're below 3 stories.
Egress meaning exit.
I guess I didn't know what it meant, but
Sounds like a kind of bird.
like the egret.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, if in a multi-story building, try to make it to a stairwell, which is often specially reinforced.
Ooh.
The few survivors of the World Trade Center collapse during the 9/11 attacks were often found inside stairwells.
Okay, so they're stronger.
Yes.
Stairwells are stronger.
Yes. Otherwise, at least try to get into a hallway where there will be less debris to crush you. The centers of rooms away from the walls are often the most dangerous locations. As a last resort, shelter under heavy office equipment or furniture, or at least hug a wall.
Okay, so never the middle of a room.
Yeah, because I was thinking that would be good, but I guess not, because more can fall on you, right? Mm-hmm. And around you, surround you. As a last okay, I already said that. If the floors tilt as they fall, all of the debris will pile up against one side, so at least this way you may have a shot of not being crushed immediately.
As long as you're on the right
They're
side.
saying if the... Yeah, that's a good point.
Like, pick a side, hope you're right.
That's a really good point. Yeah, well, I guess if it starts tilting to the right, run to the left. But then you'll just be like,
It feels like,
you'll just keep falling.
You got to have something to grab onto.
Yeah, you'll be like on a hamster wheel. If you're being covered by debris, try to keep your arms and hands in front of your face as you fall. As with an avalanche, this can help create a life-saving air pocket around your head.
Oh, right.
So afterwards, get out of the building as soon as you can gather your senses. Don't hang out or wait to see what happens next.
You know, I want to go,
But I think probably people do that, right?
I want to see what's going to happen next.
I mean,
in this movie of my life.
yeah. Well, before the show started, you admitted to me that you've been watching the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial. So you'll stand around and watch anything. I mean, you just want a train wreck.
I will watch a slow-moving train wreck.
I have been reading about it, but I haven't watched. I didn't know there was even video you could watch.
Listen. I have watched some clips.
Yeah.
I have not gone down the entire rabbit hole of watching the entire court TV testimony.
Okay.
Yet.
Yeah. Not yet.
No.
But
I'm restraining myself.
no, I get it. I understand. Okay. Small hand tools, gloves, and headlamps can be invaluable to aid in your escape. Keep in mind that broken electrical lines mix poorly with broken water lines, even more so if gas lines are present. You just want to avoid all the lines.
Oh, I don't want to be in any line.
White lines.
Yeah.
Gas lines.
Bread
power
lines.
bread lines.
Okay, so
Lines on your face.
Oh,
lines in the mirror, lines on your face.
No fan of those.
Dropping an Eagle lyric.
I love it.
An Eagles lyric.
You know that band, An Eagle?
An eagle. This makes the immediate threat of a fire a distinct possibility, and it's the reason smart rescue crews stretch and charge a water hose as soon as they pull up to a structural collapse, even if no fire is visible.
Because they're like a fire can break out at any moment.
Exactly. I'm out of breath. I'm a little out of breath. I think I had too much coffee. So I apologize for the
Maybe you're just
listener.
so excited by the
I'm very
material.
excited about collapsing buildings.
It is exciting. I mean, it's invigorating.
Like watching the Amber Heard trial. It's invigorating. Gives you life. Oh, there are people with lives more fucked up than ours. Okay. All right. If you are lightly buried,
Just a light burial.
just a light burial, try to orient yourself. Not sure which way is up? This fascinated me. Try to spit and see which way the saliva falls.
Whoa.
Isn't that crazy? So
Yes.
simple, but so smart. If you're trapped inside a void, a little bit of water and air can make all the difference, which we'll get to later when I tell you a story.
Because if you spit and it just lands on your own face,
Then you're facing up.
You're like, okay. And
But
if you
your
spin, it falls. Okay.
gravity, you're facing
Oh,
down.
I would never think to do that.
So if you're facing down, maybe punch above your head.
Yeah.
See if you can get out of there. Helping others. Get yourself out of the building first.
Sure.
The first step in rescuing others from a collapsed or partially collapsed building is sizing up the structural damage, ideally while locating any surface victims.
So people on the top.
People you can see.
Yeah.
So what they're saying is get out of the place, catch your breath, figure out what you're going to do, then do the following. If there's a rubble pile, this is crazy. Climb on top of it to get a better view and more access to surface victims. While there's a chance of the rubble moving beneath your weight,
Yeah.
thus posing more hazard to entombed victims,
Entombed.
the possible benefit of finding more surface victims usually outweighs that risk. So you're basically picking, do I want, survivors who have gotten out of the rubble
Yeah.
at the cost of people in the rubble? They're probably going to survive, so
Yes.
that's the
I
choice
guess.
you're making. If at all possible, try to make sure the utilities are turned off before entering the building.
Uh-oh. I got to figure that
And
out.
there's no way I know how to do that. Otherwise, serious risks of fire and or electrocution compound the threat of secondary collapse. Once you've cleared the perimeter of all easily accessible surface victims, it may be time to make your way inside or start digging into the pile.
Can't the firefighters do this part?
Yes, of course, but if they're not there.
How long is it going to take them to get there? Because I'm starting to feel really out of my depth.
Some people feel like they want to be a hero. This is for those people. But what if you had your family in and the emergency first responders hadn't come yet?
Obviously, I'm going to dig for my family.
You're going to dig for your family.
Yeah.
You're going to stand on top of pile 1A child to look for a child for B child.
I don't want to stand on my child's head, but
No, but you don't know that they're under there. is
yeah,
my
this
point.
sounds like an office building where I'm working with a lot of people that I don't even really like, and I have a lot of resentments towards Bob.
It did actually say if it's not your family or if they don't owe you $100,000, leave them. It basically said that. It said get out first, but if it's your family, like we understand if you're going to stay.
Okay, that's
Okay.
fair.
Yeah.
They owe you a lot of money.
Okay. Gloves, eye protection, and steel-toed boots are necessities here. Unless you're working in an office building where it's like cosplay of first responders. I don't really know how you're going to have those things.
Oh, you don't keep those in the trunk of your car?
I don't. An N95 respirator
Oh, okay.
is also nice to have considering the large amount of airborne dust and debris. So that is something we all probably have, unless you're on an airplane. Focus your efforts on searching the stairwells. Remember
Okay.
that. These sheltered locations often provide the most survivable voids for victims. If you can't find the stairwells, focus on searching adjacent to any walls that are still standing. These areas are often more prone to harbor survivors. So if there's a wall, near the wall,
Check the walls.
check the walls. There might be survivors. What do? They burrow The survivors are going to get naked
Naked
and
and
burrow
burrowing.
inside the walls. Out and away from the walls in the middle of the rooms is where debris often piles up and crushes anything underneath. So you're probably not going to have living people under the rubble. This is the time to slow the pace somewhat and think before doing. Do not rush. Do not run. You need to be able to search in a methodical manner. That means shouting out to possible victims and, this is important, being quiet while listening for calls back.
Because they might just be like taking a like a spoon and hitting it on
That's right.
a rock.
That's right. It's hard to hear while you're running or breathing hard or thinking about what you're going to do next. Anyone who hasn't been found yet is more likely than not buried under something. Otherwise, they would have walked out. That means their voices will be muffled and small. Small as the hands on that Jeopardy champ.
Tiny thumbs.
She's won like 12 days in a row.
Well, good. I'm going to call her Tiny Thumbs.
She's very impressive. Very impressive. Remember, no matter how bad the collapse looks, keep in mind that there's always a chance of survival. What's the matter, Garen? Are you getting upset about the girl with the tiny hands? No. What's the matter?
Just tiny thumbs.
Tiny thumbs.
Makes me laugh.
I probably have tiny thumbs. I have tiny.
You have nice.
My hands are tiny.
You have beautiful hands, like a piano player.
Oh, they're so ugly. But anyway,
She's so hard on herself.
you need to get Can you get Botox in your hands?
Yes.
You can.
Yes. Actresses do it all the time.
They do.
Yes.
I want to do that.
No, you don't.
Well, I once asked a doctor if you could get Botox in your knees.
You did not.
No, I did. 100%.
Okay.
I also Googled it, and he said no. And that was upsetting because I have wrinkly knees. Wrinkly knees, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But like the rest of my legs are okay.
Okay.
So I'm just going to walk around with like roller skater knee pads. How could I forget her name? Oh my God, Danielle. Like I'm Linda Ronstadt on the cover of my mom's piano book.
She's so pretty.
My mom had a piano book of Linda Ronstadt songs, and on the cover, as on the album, I'm guessing she's wearing like short shorts and
Yes.
roller skates, and I believe knee pads.
Is she wearing those colorful rainbow socks?
I think so,
I feel like she
or
is.
maybe the knee pads. I'm not sure if she's wearing knee pads, and I think she's wearing a white t-shirt, and she's super. Look up Linda Ronstadt if you don't know who she is. Okay, I was right. Okay, she is wearing knee pads. The socks are
So pretty.
knee-high socks with just black stripes. What do they call those? Not crew socks, but they have like black stripes around them. So nothing that colorful. But she does have tiny, tiny shorts.
Do you think maybe she's covering her knees because they were wrinkly?
Yep, I think they were prematurely wrinkly.
I don't think. I think knees should be low on the list of things we should worry about.
Well, maybe for you. they're high on my list. I don't know what to tell you. They're high, but they're getting lower and lower every day because they're sagging. They're not sagging. They're just they got lines in them. Okay. Where am I? Something about Botox. Okay. Remember, no matter how bad the collapse looks, keep in mind there's always a chance of survival. At least one World Trade Center survivor literally rode the building down.
Oh my God.
Something which should have been technically impossible. Victims have survived in voids up to 14 days. Actually,
Wow.
up to 17 days, which is the story I'm going to get to in a
Stop
second.
it.
And recent experience at the Haiti earthquake disaster has pushed the limits of survivability longer than anyone had previously thought. Even if you're not a first responder by trade, you may still have the responsibility, Chris, of one day being the first responder by chance.
Oh no.
Here's the story. Are you ready?
I love stories.
This happened in May of 2013.
Okay.
There was a collapse of a building in Dhaka, which is Bangladesh's capital. It was one of those garment factories.
Probably a really fun place to work for the children.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if the children work there, but okay. So anyway, a woman has been pulled alive from the ruins of an 8-story building that collapsed in a suburb of Bangladesh's capital, Dhaka, 17 days ago.
Oh, what?
Rescuers said the woman, named Rejma, I found out later she was 19, was found in the remains of the second floor of the Rana Plaza after they heard her crying, "Please save me." She has been taken to hospital. Not the hospital.
That's how they say it.
Hospital. But is not thought to have serious injuries. More than 1,000 are now confirmed to have died.
What?
Most of them women working in clothing factories. The authorities said 2,437 people had been rescued, of whom about 1,000 had suffered serious injuries. Dozens lost limbs as they were cut free from the wreckage. The accident is one of the deadliest industrial disasters in history. Soldiers were reported to have been preparing to break through a large concrete slab on Friday when the woman was discovered. The worker who first discovered her told the BBC Bengali service, "I was cutting iron rods when I suddenly found a silvery stick just moving from a hole. I looked closer and heard someone calling, 'Please save me.' I immediately called over soldiers and firefighters. Officers ordered workers operating heavy machinery to stop." Again, they need to hear.
Yeah.
"And rescuers used video and audio detection equipment to locate her exact position.
Wow.
Crew saw a woman waving her hand and she shouted, 'I'm still here,' and told rescuers her name was Reshma. Within minutes, hundreds of soldiers and fighters rushed to the scene to help clear the rubble." I mean, can you imagine you've been doing this for 17 days?
No.
And then everyone's probably excited beyond belief, like, oh my God, we can rescue someone. The woman said that she was not badly hurt and she was given water and biscuits while hand saws and drilling equipment were brought in to cut through iron rods and debris. Rescuers worked for 40 minutes before finally pulling her up from the rubble amid cheers from the crowd. She was taken to an ambulance and then rushed to the nearby combined military hospital for evaluation and treatment. She later told local TV from her hospital bed that she had never dreamt she would see daylight again. So then I looked up what happened to her because I didn't want this to be like, oh, then she died in a coma. So so they caught up with her.
Yeah.
And so she's remembering. "I heard voices of the rescue workers for several days." Oh my God. Can you imagine how scary?
Oh my God.
I mean, that's good that there's people there, but
just the how panicked that would feel to not be able to reach those voices.
"I kept hitting the wreckage with sticks and rods to attract their attention. No one heard me," she said. "I ate dried food for 15 days. The last 2 days I had nothing but water." I'll tell you in a second how she got the food. So this is when they caught back up with her. "Whenever I think of those days, I feel bad and frightened. I have forgotten most of what I did under the rubble. The teenager survived by drinking rainwater and food foraged from lunch boxes of other workers after the 9-story workplace collapsed." So bring your own food to work.
Yes.
Don't go out. I'm joking.
Pack a lunch. So she had enough movement.
I guess I don't really get it. Yeah, I don't really completely understand, but maybe there must have been enough of a pocket for her to move around and to breathe. She has now accepted a job at the luxury Westin Hotel. So she's like, I'm never going back to that industry. The teenager from a remote village in the western border district of Dinaj Parad had begun work in the building 22 days before the collapse. She was being paid a monthly salary of $60.
Oh, wow.
More than 3,000 garment workers were on shift at the time of the collapse, most of them making clothing for Western retailers.
Yep. Enjoy your H&M, folks.
Before the disaster, they had been told to remain at work despite concerns about cracks on the outside of the complex. The industry has since promised to clean up its act. Most major European buyers have signed a new accord which promises better conditions for workers as well as more frequent fire and building inspections. So I'm going to do a little preaching here. I have, in the last couple of years, I guess since COVID started, tried very hard not to buy what they call
fast fashion.
Fast fashion.
Yeah.
Which is where a lot of these things are made.
Yeah, I don't either.
I know it's not
easy.
It's not easy, and it's not really within. I totally get it if you have to, because it's cheap. It's very, very affordable. And the places I shop now are not as affordable as the places I was shopping at.
Yeah.
But I wait for sales and put your stuff in a shopping cart, leave it for a day, and they'll often come up with a 15% discount for you. Little insider tip. But I try to use, companies that use ethically sourced material as well as treat their workers properly. And even though a lot of companies still use overseas workers, they have like deals with small like family run places or stuff like that, if you can, because these places are sickening, as you can see by this.
It's horrific, the abuses that the workers go through in these other countries so that people can buy their cheap clothes. And I'm all for it. And I think, we all are going to do what we can to try to live ethically in however ways we can. What I do, and this isn't feasible for everyone either, but I buy a lot of my kids' clothes at Goodwill.
Yeah, that should be feasible. Why would that not be feasible?
Well, just for maybe a lot of people don't have time to go to the Goodwill. Like a lot of people buy
shop
online for their kids' clothes at Target.
Yeah.
And the nice thing is even companies like I think H&M and Target are starting to do more eco-conscious brands. I don't know how, I mean, it's a lot of work to investigate these things, but I do think bigger companies are starting to be more.
They'll have like a line of ethically.
They'll have a line, but I still don't know. It still might be
interesting.
I don't know if that means it still might be made in a factory in Bangladesh by. Eco doesn't mean the human rights abuses aren't happening.
Exactly. There's like many layers. And there's many like lists, and I look at these lists all the time of like, I need to get. I don't look at them for no reason. It's like, I specifically want to get a pair of wedge sandals, and then I just like put in like ethically sourced wedge sandals, and I do my best.
For me, it's a lot of my clothes I buy on Poshmark because then then I know that like it doesn't matter what brand it is because I'm not participating in the new.
Oh, because it's all used.
It's all used.
Stuff.
It's all used.
So even if it, I got it.
So I'm like, even if it came from Target, which I usually am not getting it from Target anyway, but like, I'm not part of the manufacturing
cycle. Yeah.
I'm reusing something.
Yeah.
And then same with the kids' clothes. If I'm getting it from Goodwill, it might be Target, it might be H&M, it might be Zara.
That's a really good point.
But I'm not creating anything new.
Right.
So I don't care what brand it is.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I'm not giving that brand the money and I'm not participating in any new manufacturing. So I do think used is always good as well.
Yeah.
And then it's cheaper and you're not, it's eco just in the sense that it's used.
Yeah.
So that's always and it's affordable.
All right. So that wasn't the funniest thing, collapsing buildings, but
I liked it.
I like I like the spitting part, even though I find spitting disgusting, and I hate when people do it on camera.
I hate when people spit off camera anytime.
Well, I don't really see. I just mean like in movies and TV shows, they'll do it a lot as like someone spitting into someone else's face.
Oh yeah.
And it's like I don't want to ever see that.
No.
Oh my God, we were watching Fargo. Oliver and I were watching Fargo last night, and this guy's like bleeding out. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, that's fine. But then the character had spilled milk, and then the blood was mixing with the milk, and I was like, and Oliver was like, is it the milk? And I'm like, yes, it's the milk. It's the milk with the blood.
The milk.
But even milk on its own will probably make me barf. Anyway,
you really don't like milk.
No, but it was the milk with the blood. It was really disgusting.
That is disgusting.
And Ewan McGregor plays himself and his.
Oh yes,
he plays two parts.
I remember that. I remember that season.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
So Oliver calls him Ewan McGregor.
That's really funny.
Yeah,
that's good.
We will be right back with our guest after this.
Welcome back to How to Survive with Danielle and Christine. Hey Danielle.
Hey Christine.
We're back.
How was your break?
Uneventful. I looked into a few trials going on.
Yeah.
And
Marjorie Taylor Greene is what I was looking at. Is that what you were looking at?
Yeah.
Or are you still on the Johnny Depp Amber Heard thing?
I mean, I'm interested. There's a lot of, it's all a train wreck. Yes.
It's crazy he said versus crazy she said.
And then on the other one, it's just sort of a crazy she said.
Yeah.
Hey, let's bring in our guest.
We're so excited to have Caissie St. Onge here. She is the producer. And, well, are you the producer? But you're definitely the co-host.
Yeah, I'm both.
That's so exciting. That's if we let you talk, Erin, you would be both.
We sometimes let him talk.
Busy Phillips is Doing Her Best, which is a fantastic podcast.
Thank
Very
you.
funny.
Which sort of spun off from her talk show, right?
Yeah, kind of, which I was the showrunner of her talk show. And we had always wanted to incorporate some type of like talk back with the team on the talk show. But it was just impossible to accomplish in terms of like, technically it was impossible. And also in terms of just like the network being impatient and salty all the time about everything we wanted to do. So anyway, so this is like a fun thing for us because...
Well, it's I mean, obviously we've learned that podcasts are very freeing. You get to just do whatever the heck you want. And
and we produce it independently. So we're like, what are we going to fire us? Like whenever we're like, oh, the podcast is going to be an hour late. And then we're like, we're going to be in big trouble with us.
And then you punish yourselves. Yeah, you withhold your own LaCroix.
We do punish ourselves regularly anyway.
Sure.
So I figure, just it's a given.
Yeah. And how long have you been doing the podcast?
The podcast has been going on, just like a year and a half now, maybe.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
We're brand spanking new, too.
Yes.
So
Congratulations.
We're in our honeymoon phase.
I hope you're enjoying it.
we really are. It's really fun.
Well, you have the great Garen here. So
Garen, who is a lovely producer, and sometimes he is on air. He just refuses to get up to the mic when, like a reluctant DJ, he refuses to get up to the mic.
I'm just trying to let you guys.
I think
You know what? Garen is doing what we are constantly asking men to do.
Take a step back.
Just take a step back
Yeah.
and let women do their thing.
That's
and
true.
And then if we need you, you'll jump in, right?
That's how it should be.
That's exactly
Thank
what
you,
it is.
Garen.
And he has
Thank
our
you.
back.
Yeah.
He totally does.
He's ideal.
Right. And also, he does the technical stuff, which is also a guy thing. From the people who don't know that there's a gas tank arrow and how to get out of an elevator.
It's true.
We were saying it before we got on the air.
Yeah. Well, now we know all that. Garen seemed to know all these things.
Yeah.
Or did I just pretend?
Oh, maybe that's true. I think men do that a lot. I think they confidently
Yes.
pretend that they know how to do things, but it works. Fake it till you make it, right?
Yeah. On the first half of the show, we talked about how to survive collapsed buildings. And now we're going to talk about, among other things, how to survive collapsed veins.
Yes.
But you tell the story as it unfolded.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking to you when we were talking about what we were going to talk about, and I was like, oh my gosh, have I ever really survived it? I mean, survived something. I've survived things, obviously, but I think like the wildest ordeal that I've ever probably been through myself personally, for me, is giving birth to my older son Eli, who's about to turn 23 years old. So
my goodness,
nuts to me.
Wow.
But it was just one of those situations where he was like, I didn't have gestational diabetes, but they were constantly checking to see if I did.
Okay.
So I'm assuming I was like borderline, and they kept saying like, this baby's really big, et cetera, et cetera,
Okay.
And I was like, okay, that this is all fine. I'm still, there's nothing you can do about it now. Like 8.5 months in, what am I going to be like? Oh, I cancel my order. You can't do that. So
you can't leave it in the cart and then decide.
No, you can't wait for them to hit you back with a 15% off
reduction,
your baby.
yeah.
Reduction in baby size.
Yeah.
So I was, that thing at the end of, or maybe it wasn't like this, but when I was going to my OBGYN practice in New York City, there's a number of doctors in the practice, and toward the end of your pregnancy, you see a different doctor every time instead of just seeing your doctor.
Oh.
And the logic, I guess, is that you could go into labor at any time when any of them is on duty.
Yes.
And so they want you to
be familiar.
with everyone.
That's what happened with me is that I had the same doctor every appointment, and then when it came to the day, it was a completely different doctor who I had never met before.
You probably wish you had at least met. Well, what I learned is that like those 5 different doctors had 5 very different opinions of like what should be happening. Mm-hmm. And so I went to one doctor who was my doctor, then the next week saying like, this is a big baby. And then the next doctor another week who was like, this is a big baby, but you're 37 weeks.
Yeah.
And then the next doctor being like, if you don't have this baby by next week, like we're going to have to go in and, kickstart something.
Oh my God, that must have made you crazy.
So it did make me crazy. And then the doctor the next week was like, oh no, you're like, it's your first pregnancy. You're due like today. It's fine.
Yeah,
go a couple more days. You'll go into labor. And then I went the next week, and finally that doctor was like, why do you still have this baby in you?
Shit.
He was giant 1 month ago. Go to the hospital right now. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to go home and like get my bag and stuff. And they were like, no, go to the hospital this second. The hospital's waiting for you. And so we're going to induce labor. And I was like, okay. So I went to the hospital immediately. My husband was wearing like shorts and sandals because it was summer and it was freezing cold in the hospital. So he like went to like a friend's house who lived close by and borrowed pants and socks and shoes.
You don't want to welcome a new member of the family in shorts and sandals.
Way too casual.
Way too casual for the occasion.
Yeah. So they induced labor, and they did all these really gross things that maybe, Garen, you're not familiar with, but they did the stripping of the membranes. I don't know if you had.
I didn't have to do that,
Do you
but
know
I've heard
what?
of it.
No.
Yeah, it's just like, to describe it, is just like a doctor puts on a glove, reaches up into your guts, and just like grabs at everything and twists it around and tries to like pull it all out. I feel like
Holy shit, I did not know this.
To aggravate the baby into coming out. I feel like. Or
are you at this point on any kind of pain medication?
No, I wasn't, and so I was on the drip of Pitocin, I guess, which is to like kickstart.
Which I've also heard is really intense.
I did it too, and it's fucking intense. I was also sorry to interrupt.
No.
I was also induced, but because I was 10 days late. So it was scheduled.
Okay.
It was a
Right,
scheduled
right.
induction. It wasn't like get the heck over there.
Yeah. So I was on that Pitocin drip. I also had the super annoying habit, which this is also applies to plane turbulence, but every time I had a contraction or someone else in the hospital had a contraction or like a yelling because they were pushing, I would crack up laughing out of nervousness, which I also do when it feels like a plane is going to crash and everyone in the plane is like, are you fucking serious? Are you laughing right now? And I'm like, I wish I wasn't, but yes.
Is it a maniacal laugh like you may have caused the plane to crash?
It's just very nervous laughter. So I was like between myself and other people having contractions and moaning and other people pushing and screaming in this like teaching hospital in New York City. I was dying of laughter, and
That's amazing.
pretty sure the whole floor must have hated me. And then
Just laughing at their pain.
just laughing out of like nervousness. I'm like,
Yes.
it's not I'm laughing with you,
Right,
but you're
yes.
just not laughing. You should try laughing. So that went on for like 17 hours, I think.
oh my
And
God.
then finally, a doctor who wasn't my doctor just came in and was like, this isn't happening. Like, this baby's not coming out. So I think we have to start thinking about a C-section.
So you were having contractions or you weren't having
I
contractions?
was, yeah.
So, but for some reason, even though you had the Pitocin, which induces labor, and you were having contractions, he just didn't want to budge.
He just didn't want to budge. He was just, which makes a lot of sense now.
I was very comfortable.
Yeah, he was comfortable.
Is he, as I say of my son, prone to stillness?
He's prone to stillness. He's like a cozy homebody.
Yeah.
So he just wasn't coming out. And so this doctor was like, I got to get to the theater. I have play tickets.
Oh.
No, I made up this story in my mind because she was dressed very nicely. And she was like, we got to get this show on the road.
Yes.
So then after all the planning that you do to like push a baby out, and like we had hired a doula and we were like, doula, you can go home. This pushing's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
I don't think we actually ever even called her into the hospital because the time never arose. So I went in to have this, then once they tell you you're having a C-section, then you still wait hours for them to get a free like operating room and whatever. So, and then I did get what is that, like a spinal?
An epidural?
Yeah, an epidural.
Because they have to do that anyway in case. I remember they that's how they snuck an epidural in me, because they were like, well, we might have to do a C-section.
Right.
So we at least have to put the thing in. And I was like, okay. And then they were like, let's just test the medicine in case you have a reaction. Because I was like, I don't want to do an epidural. I was this whole like, I'm not going to do an epidural. And then I was like, oh, I am doing an epidural. This is amazing.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So they kind of
tricked you.
They kind of tricked me.
Yeah, the first
That's weird
taste
because
is
some
free.
people really, really, really don't want medicine. So that's kind of weird that they would do that.
Yeah.
Well, this is when I learned that like what you want and what everyone else wants are two different things.
Yep.
And you have to be really...
You have to be a team. You have to be... They're like, we're going to get what we want. And also when you're in that much pain and like you're that weak... For me,
they're
anyway,
the experts
I was
and they're
like,
telling you,
it's really hard to... Because even Sven was like... My husband was like, remember what they said. And I was just like... never mind. Like,
Right.
I do think it's a difficult position to be in.
Yes, and people are telling you, you're saying like, oh, I wanted to do it this way. And so many people who are like experts in it's their profession are like, yes, but it's not going to work that way.
Right.
So now we have to be
you can't
flexible.
be married to
and, yeah, and you just don't know like whether it's a matter of like convenience for them. Like I was saying, like I think she just wants to get
got
to
theater tickets,
her Broadway show. But so anyway, so I got that epidural. And then finally went in to get the C-section. And these are just details. These are just filling in some of the details. My husband...
We want all the details.
Yes, we're all
my
about
husband,
details.
they put him in scrubs. And then he was like... I guess got like a distant look in his eye, and this nurse was like, "Are you all right, sir?" And he was like, "Yeah, I just think I'm feeling like a little dizzy because I haven't eaten." And she was like, "Somebody get him a bagel, get it in him, and you decide if you're okay in like 2 minutes because this is happening and we can't have you in there passing out.
Oh my God.
It's not
Wow.
about you." And he was like, "Okay."
I was going to say, it's so funny that like you can't eat, you're having surgery,
Yeah.
you're in pain, and I forgot to eat. Because only fucking men forget to eat.
Yes.
And then that it becomes an issue.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in his defense, he had been like hanging out for the full 17 hours and probably wasn't eating
okay.
out of sympathy for me.
Yes.
But also, it is funny that when like the rubber hit the road, he was like, "I'm gonna black out," and this nurse was like, "Oh no, you're not," and she was like basically telling him like, "You have the power to not do this, so don't do it."
Yeah.
You know, and he was like, "Okay, agreed." And then so I got wheeled into the operating room, and you've seen it, like they have the curtain there. And then your husband is up by your head behind the curtain, and also the anesthesiologist is there. And I remember the anesthesiologist was so nice. And I remember telling him, I feel like I'm going to throw up. And he was like, everyone always says that, but it just feels like that you're not going to throw up. And then I fully threw up on his shoes.
God.
And he was like, "Hey, you did it. You really said you were going to do it. And then you really did it."
And you're like, I commit.
Yeah, exactly.
Good for him for being so
he
positive
had a
about
very
it.
good sense of humor. I mean, I'd imagine that they get splashed with all kinds of things in those rooms. So then they did the C-section, which, surprising thing, if you've never had it, it only takes like a second. Like they only, just cut you open.
Really?
Yeah. And then get the baby out.
Don't they have to, I'm sorry, but don't they have to take out like your organs first or something?
I mean, my husband did go to see them like take the baby out, which I was surprised by. Like he went around the curtain. And when he came back, he was like, "I saw everything in there," and I was like, "Can we not not right now? I just threw up on the anesthesiologist." But I think they do kind of like, I don't know, I didn't see it, but they must have to like move things around. I think they like kind of but I don't know if they like take things out and
Like
set them on you and then put them.
I might be thinking of an autopsy.
Maybe. It's probably not entirely different.
Very similar procedures.
I did feel like in the ensuing years, I have felt like it, whatever it is like IKEA packaging. Like once you take it out, you're never getting it back in all the same way that it was. So I'm sure they did move some things. But anyway, baby was out. And then I just remember them saying like, "Oh, she's really boggy. She's really boggy." And I was like, "What does boggy mean?"
Yeah.
I just remember I kept saying, "What does boggy mean? What does boggy mean?" And then finally the anesthesiologist, the nice anesthesiologist, was like, "You're just bleeding a little bit more than normal. So they're just trying to stop that. It's okay. Just relax." And I was like, "Okay, this is very scary. And thank God this man is here." But then they closed everything up and I went to recovery and went to sleep, I guess. That makes sense, right? To go to sleep after they cut you open.
Did you get to hold the baby?
I think I got to hold him. Yes. My younger son I didn't get to hold because he went like right to NICU or whatever because he had pooped in my tummy. And so that's a rush to NICU situation. Disgusting.
Wait, why is it a rush to NICU for him? It should be a rush for you.
No, because when the baby poops inside the womb, they breathe it in, so they have to.
Oh my God!
I think it's called
meconium. Yeah.
Oh, I've heard of meconium, but I didn't know that's what it was. Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, with him, I got to hold him briefly, but I was like just knocked out by the time and had like lost blood and woke up later, like in my room, which God bless my husband. He had been like, went to the hospital and was like, she's had a really rough go. Is there any way to put her in a private room that's just her? Because this has been rough and it's been a long delivery. And they were like, oh yeah, we happen to have a private room. I mean, a private room in a New York City. It was a very gritty hospital.
Okay.
That's what I'll say. Like, it was like, we called it do-it-yourself hospital because every time we'd just be like, can anyone help us? We had to go buy our own diapers because our baby was too big.
Are you
for
kidding?
The newborn diapers.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow.
He was really big and he was like 10 pounds, 9 ounces, I think. Yeah. So a big
Holy
guy.
cow.
Really big hands and really big feet. And
That's amazing.
took up the whole bassinet.
Oh my God, that's so. Wait, and how late was he? Only a few days?
He was only a few days late. Yeah,
He was just a big
I think
guy.
he was due on the 20th, and he was born on the 23rd.
Okay.
So, so then just, they're going to keep you for whatever, 24 hours because you had a C-section and that's like a luxurious amount of time for anyone who's had a baby. And then that's when like the trouble started. Like I spiked a fever like pretty immediately and they were like, that's normal, and I just kept having this like climbing fever and it was really hot summer and the AC was broken in the hospital.
Oh my
so
God.
I kept being like,
What the
maybe
hell?
it's just that it's like hot, whatever,
Was this, can I just ask, was this perhaps like a cosplay thing where they wanted you to see like what it was like to have give birth in the olden days?
Maybe it could have been.
Like, we're gonna not have any diapers. We don't have diapers. That doesn't exist then. We're no artificial air
Renaissance
conditioning.
fair.
It's
Yeah,
the Renaissance
it's a real
fair.
fair.
There's
Yes,
someone with
yes.
like a lamb chop over your baby.
Terrible. So just the conditions, it was New York City though. It was New York City in 1999. Was it 1999? I think so. Like all air conditioning in New York City struggles in a heat wave.
Right.
And so it was pretty normal feeling for me. And plus I was like delirious with fever. So I was like, but, so anyway, yeah. So come to find out I had some infection, like, and we were just trying to determine like what the extent of the infection was and how bad it was. And so I kept having this fever. And so finally they were like, we're gonna try to put you on some IV antibiotics to like, to knock out this infection and get your fever down. And I was like, okay, that seems fine. And so they had an IV nurse, a very stern IV nurse, come in to give me an IV. And she was just, trying and was like, this isn't working. I'm not able to get a vein. And so, and she was like pissed about it. And I was like, I'm sorry about my pain.
It's painful too.
It was
they
painful.
can't find a vein right away for an IV. That's a painful experience.
And
So I've heard this before about not being able to find a vein. What does that mean? Like they literally can't, like they can't see it through like your skin, or they can't even feel it, or
I think
they're not where they're supposed to be.
I think it probably is like a combination of a lot of things. Like when I was probably like retaining water after
been
like
pregnant,
having,
right?
and having a baby. I think sometimes when, I've heard this, I don't know, medical professionals, let me know, but I've heard sometimes that people have very rolly veins and it's hard to just,
I just heard that too.
it's like they run away.
I just heard that I just had an IV recently because I just had surgery on my knee, and the nurse was explaining to me, she was like, oh, I'm so happy I found the vein on the first time. And I was like, me too.
She's like, I don't have a good track record.
Right.
She said a lot of the times, because mine was right here, you can still see the mark, that the veins will almost like jump.
Yes.
They jump and they like split away and they like hide from the needle. And I thought that was so interesting.
They're like little rubber hoses and they sort of like collect collapse and flex.
Yeah.
And so
crazy.
And I guess depending on probably again, many things like your blood pressure.
And if you're having an infection, maybe that makes it even more difficult.
Yeah, who knows? So anyway, she eventually got this IV in my arm in like an awkward place. And so she was like, you just have to sit here like awkwardly. And I remember I was sitting up and then I was like, I kept saying like, I can taste the medicine in my mouth. And they were like, and she was like, that's impossible. And then I just remember this nurse being like, it's totally possible. And other people have said that before. I don't know why.
Yes.
She would say, but I was like, it tastes really gross. So I just remember like eating popsicles or whatever, just having a fever, sitting awkwardly, eating popsicles. But then eventually, because like, I guess I'm just difficult this way. Like that IV failed because it was like so this lady had to come back and give me another IV in another spot.
God.
And so it just kept being like the amount of time I needed to be on these antibiotics, like these IVs kept failing.
No.
And, like the vein would, I don't know, maybe tear or whatever.
You have delicate veins.
Maybe. Yeah. And so this nurse was finally like, I just can't deal with this woman in her veins. So they were like,
So difficult.
yeah. And she just was kind of like declining to try. She was like, I don't know what to do. Mm-hmm. And so they were like, the hospital, I don't even know, like the charge nurse from the floor was like, we have someone who's going to come in and like take care of you.
Are you kind of like, why didn't you bring that person?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, I guess, it was like this woman's job just to put IVs in people. And I'm sure she was great at it. And I'm sure I was like a challenging case, which probably happens. Right. So anyway, they bring in this man and he's like obviously a doctor.
Oh.
And he's like a little older man. And he was like, hey, I'm the hospital's pediatric anesthesiologist. It's my job to put anesthesia in very, very tiny veins. And they're telling me that you're having such a hard time. And he was like, so I'm going to put your medicine in. And I was like, okay. And he was so sweet, of course, obviously, because he was a pediatric anesthesiologist. Yeah. So he started in all of the places and he was having a hard time with my arms, a hard time with my hands. And then he was like, and so apologetic the whole time. And I was like, that's at least like a nice change of pace over getting like chastised for having sucky veins.
Yes.
And so then he was like, okay, this is going to be weird, but you know what I'm going to do? He was like, I see like a big fat vein in your ankle. I'm going to put it in your ankle. Would you be okay with that?
Yeah.
If we put a long tube down to your leg? And I was like, yes, whatever you need to do.
Right.
And so he started on one ankle. It didn't work. He tried on the other ankle. It didn't work. I know. And then he was like, then he cried and he was like, I'm so sorry.
No, he cried.
Yes, he was like, it's my job to make you feel better and I'm making you feel worse and I'm hurting you. And I was like, don't cry. I'm like comforting this little old man doctor, this little tiny man. And I was like, please, I appreciate all you're trying to do. And he was like, I just need to take a break for a few minutes. And then I'm going to come right back and we're going to get this. And I was like, okay, whatever you need me to do. And I was just like, so we were doing all the tricks, all of the like, trying to get your blood pumping to like a certain place, whatever, blah, 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 blah. So he finally and meanwhile I have like a fucking fever and and so he takes a little break, he comes back and he's like, we're gonna do this, let's go. And so we finally get this IV like in the inside of my ankle, like this vein on the inside of my ankle. So gross. And he's like, okay, great, this will hold us for a while. And so so that held for a while. And then eventually, like everything else, it failed like in the middle of the night. And I was just like, oh my God. And so there was...
Is this the veins collapsing?
Yeah, they're just like, I guess like when you have an IV, if you have it for a really long time, probably like from moving around or whatever, or just like something rushing in from another place, I think like it probably just starts to leak or whatever and isn't doing, or like blood flows back into the... Who knows? I wasn't even asking. But,
I mean, you weren't in your right mind to be like asking the questions.
Yes. And so I think this started to fail and I was still feverish and feeling bad. And then I just remember talking to my husband and my mom like very late at night. And I could see their faces. Like I thought I was just talking to them and I could see their faces like, what's wrong with her? And I guess I was saying like nonsense.
Oh.
And so
that's so scary.
It was so scary. And so I guess I was saying like, I don't know, I was talking about orchids or something when they were just talking about like whatever. And it really scared my husband. So he ran to the desk and he was like, something's wrong with my wife. And so nurse comes in, brings the IV nurse that's on duty, that's still the stern lady. And she was like,
what now?
Yeah, she was just like, well, I'm going off duty, but what I think we're going to have to do is something called like a cut down, which means that they cut into your neck and put...
come on.
Yeah.
Louise.
And I remember just being like, no, I don't want that. I don't want that. And my husband being like, they say they have to do that.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I was like, I really don't want that. And I got like hysterical and emotional. And the IV nurse was like, I'm going to go call your doctor because they have to like, you know, okay, all this with your, like, is this going to be okay? And the nurse that was on duty that night she was such a nice lady. And I was just like, I'm begging you, I will do anything. I will sit up and swallow 100 pills instead of getting another IV. Yeah. I'll just like, however many pills.
Right. That's what I was wondering. Can you just take antibiotics?
Yes. And she was like, it would be a lot of pills. And I was like, I'll do it. I'll swallow 200 pills. I'll sit up with you all night. And she was like, so she went, and then she was, you know, I guess she was gonna help the IV nurse like contact my doctor and talk about the IV nurse's plan or whatever. And then I don't know what happened. I'm guessing that she must have like either advocated for not doing that or whatever, but she came back and she was like, okay, here we go. We got a bunch of pills we have to take. And I was like, okay. And then I was like, can I just like, no more needles, no more.
Yeah.
And I was like, I just know my body. And I actually think that getting stuck by a bunch of things is making me worse. And I just feel like, you know, and she was like, yes. And then she was really sad too. And she was like, I have to try this because you remind me of my daughter, and I was feeling so sad for you. And like, just, you know,
I love that you still had that wisdom to advocate for yourself.
I know.
Like, and that you weren't just like talking about orchids.
Could you just feed me 100 orchids? I will eat as many orchids as I need.
So anyway, so she came in with a whole tray of pills and was like, these are big pills and there's a lot of them and there's a lot to take. And, you know, so I just took all of these pills, like equivalent to what would have been in an IV.
Wow.
Just one at a time.
Yeah.
And I remember her being like, let's, you know, we'll do it slow. It's gonna probably upset your stomach, whatever. But then she was like, but here's the good news. You can now sleep for 8 hours. That's when I'll come back with another tray of pills.
Oh.
And nobody's gonna come in and stick you with any needles or try to, you know, nobody even needs to check on you.
Right.
You can just sleep for 8 hours. And so I took all those pills and she was like, I'll see you in 8 hours with the next tray. So get ready.
I'm sorry. I'm just picturing that now your baby is like a 5-year-old because he's so big and he just keeps growing by the hour.
Yeah. Also, what I'm not...
You haven't seen him.
Well, what I'm not pointing out is that he was in his little bassinet in the room the entire time.
Yeah.
And this is stretching out to 8 days that I was
my
in the
God.
hospital.
What?
Yeah. So he was there the whole
like outgrown
time.
the
Yes.
bassinet.
And like, thank God that my husband had the foresight to like get that private room for me because
No
I would have been
kidding.
like...
Oh, man.
So anyway, I went to sleep. I took that big tray of pills. I went to sleep. I woke up the next morning and I was like, I don't have a fever. I can feel it. I don't have a fever. And so the nurse came in and I was like, I think I don't have a fever. She took my temperature. She was like, your temperature is like 98 degrees. That's amazing.
Okay.
And she was like, you were right. You called it. You said if everybody would just leave you alone and stop sticking things in you for
You get
8
better.
hours,
Yeah.
you'd get better. And she was like, oh, I'm so glad. What a relief. And like this wacky plan paid off. Thank God. So I still had to take like another tray of antibiotics, obviously, and stay in the hospital further until I could get like, you know, examined and all that. But I felt well enough for the first time. Like I felt like lucid and my husband and my mom, who had been with me in the hospital pretty much the whole time, they thought that I looked good enough that my husband was like, I'm going to go get clothes and like take a shower. And my mom was like, I'm going to go get an egg sandwich because I haven't eaten in days. And I was like, great. And it was truly like the first time that I was left alone with the baby and where I was like, and I was like, I too am going to take the first shower of 8 days and get into like fresh pajamas that my husband had brought for me or that were like in my bag, whatever. And so I just I've never felt better. I've never had a shower that felt better. Took a shower, dried my hair, put on like a little makeup, put on fresh pajamas, and then I was like, and now I'm going to change the baby's diaper for the first time by myself. And then he was like head to toe in this bassinet, like just limbs like hanging out over. And I took off his diaper. And picked up his legs like you do, and he projectile fired shit all over my face, into my clean hair, all down the front. But I was laughing so hard that I was like, I'm gonna black out. Like I had to put him down, leave him covered in shit, and like lay down and like call a nurse and be like, I'm worried that I'm like ripping open my whole thing. And she was like,
oh right, because you're laughing and you've got a C-section scar.
We were just all God, me and him and the room all covered in shit, the biggest shit I've ever seen.
He was like, hey mama,
hey, welcome back to the world, welcome back, I've been waiting for you. Oh my God,
that's amazing.
But I was just like, well, I felt so good for a few minutes, but at least I thought it was funny, and I didn't like. It could have.
You didn't pass out.
I could have really just pushed him out into the hallway and been like, whatever, whoever can
baby
handle
for
it.
sale.
Yeah, exactly. So I re-cleaned myself, and then I got to go home like a couple days later after taking like 1,000 antibiotic pills.
Oh my God,
that's insane.
But yeah, so that's the whole story of like, I don't know if that's like a how-to guide to survive anything. Not really.
Well, you seem to keep a pretty good attitude about it. And also you survived because, like Chris said, you advocated for yourself in this really precarious time where, I mean, I was thinking, can you just take antibiotics by mouth? And then I was like, oh, that's ridiculous. Of course you can't do that. But then you thought that actually at the time, and you could. That story is crazy, incredible. I'm so glad you were okay. I'm so glad your kids were okay.
Me too. Yeah.
So thank you so much for coming on.
Oh,
it was
my
a great
gosh,
story.
Thank you for having me.
Oh my God, it was so
not to
great.
Scare anyone. I mean, I think a lot of things have changed since then. And again, like I said, it is what happened. And like everybody was doing their best to take care of me, like doing their best at doing their job. And sometimes it just goes a little sideways. But
and everyone has different delivery stories. I mean, there's a different story for each person that it's all bananas.
Yeah.
I mean, my girl was born with a penis. What are you going to do? So things happen. I was told I was having a girl.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's
that's
wild.
Yeah.
It happens. I know it happens. It had like but you always, every time you hear it happens, you're like, oh, that's so, it happens a lot of times, but when it happens to you, suddenly you're like...
It was very on brand for that to happen to me, honestly. It made a lot of sense. All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we will be right back with
what we learned
today.
Bye.
All right. Now it is time, Christine, for What Did We Learn Today?
I'm excited.
We're advocating for a Kiss a Straight Girl Day, gays only.
Please.
When in a building, watch for cracks, listen for groans. Maybe ghost related, but more likely the building is about to collapse around you.
Both are scary.
Yeah. A very American scandal, the Johnny Depp Amber Heard story, coming soon.
Oh, they're going to make that into a miniseries.
Oh my God, who are they going to get to play? Oh, you said that she used to go out with a woman who looked like Johnny Depp, so we'll get her to play Johnny Depp.
Yeah.
That's
she can
great.
play herself.
She might have to play herself. I don't know what else she's doing. Or they get the Australian actress to play her who looks exactly Margot Robbie.
There's three Margot Robbies right now.
Yeah.
So get one of those.
Lightly buried? Try spitting.
I'd prefer to stay buried.
I know. Be quiet and listen for other trapped survivors. Prematurely wrinkly knees is an epidemic that Daniela Linda Ronstadt will not stand for. And by the way, on me, it's not really premature. I mean, it was when it started, probably. It's no longer premature. During C-section, your organs are usually just moved aside so that the doctor can see your uterus better. I'm going to throw up. But the organs stay within the abdominal cavity and aren't taken out. In rare cases, the intestines may be temporarily lifted out for better visualization and space to operate, but not permanently.
Wow, that's intense.
Garen had to type that. I'm surprised he didn't faint just while typing it. Well, you know what? It's been a crazy day.
It has been
We have been
insane.
Through an emotional roller coaster.
You know what I think? I'm going to need a cocktail later.
I think it's a good day for a cocktail.
Oh.
What's your cocktail of choice?
You know what?
You like a Moscow Mule, right?
I like a Moscow Mule. I do like a margarita.
Ooh, I haven't had a margarita in so long.
You know what? I'm going to tell you something right now.
Yeah.
They have these canned margaritas.
Yeah?
They're good.
Really?
Yeah. I just get the can, put it over some ice, squeeze in a little lime. I put the salt around my glass. Delicious.
I gotta watch my salt now because of the goddamn ear thing. But other than that, yeah, I can do it. That's great.
Yeah.
Okay, so margarita in a can. You don't have to add anything. Just margarita in a can.
You know what? I'm going to put the brand in the show notes so everyone can. They're not a sponsor. They should be. I can't remember the name of the can brand right now, but in the show notes it'll be there if you click on those show notes.
And I like a mojito.
Oh, do you make your own mojito?
Nope, never have.
You just get it out.
Time. Yeah, when I'm out
But
somewhere,
what if
I'll
you're
get a
home?
mojito.
If you're home, do you like to have a cocktail?
I just have like whiskey and Diet Coke.
Look at you.
With lime if I have it, if I'm fancy.
You always got to have limes.
I know, but I don't always have the lime.
Oh, man.
But yeah, you got to kind of add that.
I love it.
Yeah, simple. I'd drink to that.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
And remember, until next time, remain calm.